everyone. Hello? Okay. Hi. So excited to have you all here to listen in on our very spontaneous conversation. Esther, thank you for being here. We're freestyling it today, which I think is always the most fun way to do, especially when you talk about the grand ideas involving the future and the mobility and how we're going to get there, which really no one knows. And so it's a great place to imagine and look at all of the wonderful ideas that are happening. And we have Esther, who has a big part in making some of these ideas happen, and projects that lead to other projects that lead to new companies and new ways of thinking. So can you talk about what this transformation is like and what your role has been?
Yeah, so hi, welcome everybody. I found the space, so if you find it too cold, that's probably also on me. If you like it, let us know. I was hired at BMW a couple of years ago by the board with only one line, which was, please help us disrupt the company from the inside before it's being disrupted from the outside. And I got some resources and had no team and had a desk. And and so we started to work on projects that ranged from the very first ones that we did for BMW I in a team of 3, where we invented the most efficient LED street lantern around that also charges your car, to eventually writing the strategy on autonomous driving for the board of BMW. And somewhere in between, we were asked to look at Mini, the brand, and I brought in 5 people from the outside. We found 4 people inside the company and looked at Mini. And the question was, if this was your company, what would you do? And we came back and said we would do quite a lot of things. We would look at the role of car and mobility and redo a lot of things there. But we would also look at the brand and realize its origins is as a design brand. There was only one product in 1959. It was a very iconic car. And that was very much anchored in the fashion and music scene of the time. And we would take that brand and take it back to its origins on the basis of design and build a brand that speaks to people and what's most relevant to them. Because the first car was a solution to a problem. It was the times of the fuel crisis, and the inventor of the car built a car that was supposed to deal with that. And it needed to be as efficient as possible and be as mindful as possible of space. And we said, let's take the same mindset and come up with something that's relevant today. And so we suggested that we look at what's most relevant to people today and work on that, such as build apartments that are actually affordable. And handed that to the board and thought we'd never hear back. And they said, well, then let's do that. Relaunch what you need to do. And we have literally so far touched every aspect of the business, coming from relaunching the brand, the logo, the view, the visuals, to launching Mini Living, which is going to open its first location for co-living in Shanghai next year, to starting to launch a fashion line, to building the space for designers, to investing in startups, as Michael said, and now taking on the way we sell cars and where we sell cars. It's been a ride.
Definitely. And thinking about cars, right? For years, there's been this sort of push and pull. Like, there's one side that says, cars will always be here and we love our cars and we're never giving up our cars. And then the other side is no cars, we need to get rid of cars, ban them from the world. But what's happening now is sort of a shift in a way that these two worlds are starting to come together and realizing they are somewhat interdependent. And so maybe you could talk about the role of a traditional legacy car company, which Mini is a part of, and what the Mini Cooper stands for, which is this iconic British motoring thing, and then all of your projects, which are about thinking, how do you use that as a gateway or bridge to the future?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about
Or you can just riff.
Yeah, let's riff somewhere. Yeah, I mean, I came into the board at a time where company was not thinking of fully autonomous driving, with the strong opinion that this is going to be very relevant, specifically for big cities. I think there's been a lot said. I don't think I can add anything now at this stage. The strategy was written 3.5 years ago. that you guys haven't heard, but I do believe that people want to be mobile, they want to move. We see that in every statistic every year, miles driven, miles flown, miles traveled, that increases significantly. The fact that we have everything virtual and digital doesn't mean people don't want to meet each other and see each other in the eyes, so that's not going anywhere. The question of how you get there should be changing significantly. And years ago, where there was always this question of, is the car still a status symbol? I find that a relatively boring discussion, because why should it be? There's not a single status symbol that your grandparents had that's still relevant to you today, I don't think, and why should it? But that doesn't mean that there is no room for mobility and vehicles of some sort. And I think that Mini is a specific brand in that people are incredibly attached to their car. Every research that we did when we started this found that there is an insane amount of owners of Minis that give their car a name, and they have a very, very personal attachment to this. Also very relevant to know if you want to change anything about the brand, because they have a very strong opinion about this brand, I can assure you that. Which is also great because they will engage with you, and that you need to respect that. There are people that want to have their car and they want to have that feeling, and that may change in 2025 when you live in a very big city and a mobility service will come and pick you up, and it's just so cheap and so convenient that you will rethink. And exactly for that time, I think that's a great opportunity. We can come up with really good ideas on how to service you then, because I think when car sharing came up first, it felt like you're either going to buy a car or you share a car. It's either or. And I think that has moved to something like as a continuum, which we now look at as a dial of time. You can get a car from 5 minutes to 5 years. And anything in between there might be a business opportunity. And there is flexible lease, there is ride sharing, there's car sharing, and then you can basically look at that and say, okay, is there a subscription model? What would that look like? So is there a subscription model with multiple modi of transportation? The question is just, people will want to move, and there is all kinds of opportunities for you to come up with a good way of making them an offer, and that's a very exciting space to be in. And I think for a quintessentially urban brand like Mini with a very urban concept, that's quite exciting.
So Mini is uniquely positioned to get into this space, whether you call it a lifestyle brand. Is that some of the thinking around the activities that you're involved in, or what are you gleaning from this research?
Yeah, I mean, we all hate the word, but why we hate it, we haven't come up with anything better. I hate that term as much as I hate the fact, that we say it's a love brand. So any suggestions for better wording are highly welcome. But for lack of better words, when we researched this first, and I had nothing to do with Mini originally, we looked at studies where we asked people what Mini is and what it does, and people came up with lists of stuff that they were sure we had on offer that we never did. And then we looked at clouds of words that people associated with it, and then we were hiding what it stood for and asked people what this was describing, and no one said car. Because people come up with adjectives about a Mini that are very personalized. It's almost like describing a character. And so we looked at that, and then we started to ask people reference brands and said, Apple, what would you buy from Apple? And that list is so much longer than a list of what would you buy from Dell, right? Dell, you would buy a computer or a printer. Apple, you would buy shitloads. But when you ask people, would you let Apple furnish your apartment? People are like, no. And with Mini, we did something similar, and we got to the point where people said, yeah, maybe. And we realized there is quite a lot of credibility apparently for a brand like Mini if you are into that brand. So we realized that, and then we looked at where the brand came from and realized the whole story of Relevance. We had a lot of fun in the archives. The 1959, 60s archive, actually quite fun. And the story of Alec Isigonis was this guy who was obsessed with doing something about the fuel crisis we thought was interesting. And one of the first lines that he used was creative use of space. So like, okay, there's something there. And there's these pictures that we have them on the website, I think, somewhere. He sat 4 people on the floor like that, and then he took a piece of chalk and drew it around and said, that's the space you need. You shouldn't be eating more space. And that story we thought was pretty good. And so we had an idea of what the brand could do and what was there, and then we looked at what people it was what was it? It was a statistic on research on what people identify most with. It wasn't status symbols, but it was like what's most important to you, what makes you, and what are you thinking about most. And the first one was like living and everything around it, and then the second was styling and fashion, and then there was experiences, and there was travel, and then further down the line there was mobility. And so we said, okay, it's really important to people that live in a city to find a place they love to live at, and then have an apartment they can afford, and then it should be well designed, and then they want some experience. And so this is where we realized we should be doing that, creative space. We should be building apartments. And so mini living as a co-living idea that is maybe without stepping on anybody's toes, but I would say it's the non-Silicon Valley version, more European version of co-living, where it actually feels like you would want to live there and you meet real people. Sorry. And that's kind of what we're building right now. To me, a lot of that means it's democratic, by which I mean it's actually open. It has public space, invites anybody in the same way. This place is always open, and you will meet all the neighbors. And there is a lot of fun stories about who mixes and meets here. And it's definitely not a homogeneous, artificial crowd, which I think is is somewhat endangered these days. I feel like we all, I don't want to use the overused bubble word, but it kind of is like that. And so that's what we're trying to not do and build public spaces that mix with places you live in, and you have an actual sense of community of people that you haven't met yet. So this is something we're doing, and we think a lot about how we do that kind of stuff. And then, mini fashion is another smaller initiative. It's a lot of fun. It's a tough one, but fun. That kind of stuff.
It's an excellent design anthropology mashup, really. So thinking about where we are and the work that goes on all around us, it's not just about Mini and this brand that everyone knows. It's really not. If you look around, there's no Mini anything here. And what you see are a lot of people working on their companies and their startups. Can you talk about that relationship?
Yeah, so, I discussed this earlier with a journalist, I don't know if she's still here, who I think asked twice, again, just to make sure. We did build all of these initiatives in very, very small teams on ourselves. So we didn't work with agencies, but we did work with we did work with experts. So we got in brain power, a lot of that, wherever we could, and smart brain power to come up with solutions that we believed in. And the key point for this place was really, we would want to hang out there. To be perfectly, we just said, we would want to hang out here, our friends would want to hang out here, the people we believe in and we would love to cooperate with or have around would want to be here, and what would that take? And the key KPI was, quality time spent. And in that, you just ask the people that you would want to have here what it is they would need, and then have them have a hand in how that emerges. And with that, we asked ourselves, would we want to hang out in a space that's over-branded? Would I want to spend my private time in a space that says, I was going to pick something which I'm not doing now, but there's quite a few examples there, and I always, I have to cringe. It's like going to an event where I'm enjoying this, and in the end they give you this piece of paper where you have to put your email down and to put your email I just screwed this up. And this is like this. We didn't want to ruin the space that we felt like there's going to be so much love pouring in from us and all the partners by over-branding it. But then there's always this moment where people are like, but what is this? We don't get it, and how is it anything to do? And so we felt like, hey, our reception guys was getting so tired, we put up a little board that explained it after 9 months, because it was hey, just put out something. We get to the point where we're like, okay, maybe now we should put on a logo. People have been asking for it, and then we was like, what, we've come so far without one, now we leave it.
So what's happened? What have you learned since then? How have these startups changed your perspective?
Yeah, the first thing we learned was that it makes absolutely no sense to separate groups of people, which we did religiously, and we can attest to that. We had two teams here, ADO and Urban X. Like we said, the Urban X guys, they startups, they have to work on a company, they have to have their own space. Oh, the ADO designers have their own space. They kind of need the same machines. How do we solve that? But we have to keep them apart. And then we realized, actually, the magic happens whenever they cross paths. And when they then work with the guys from the restaurant, something else emerged. And by now we've realized the more doors we open, the more intersections that happen, the more exciting stuff comes out. So that's one thing. We literally are reconfiguring the entire back of house to realize that that was a stupid idea. The other thing was that the best thing we did was to say everybody can walk in here, because again that brings great people here and like makes things happen. And we have loads of examples. Like we have companies launching here, we have products being launched here from the designers where they say, I collaborated with these guys that sat next door, and we feature a lot of them on the website or on the Instagram, where really they say it couldn't have happened otherwise. So that's great in total. For us, we invest in about 10 companies per cohort because we truly see that there is something. And we have followed up investments with the venture group of BMW, so more money has come in. We have one that works now with BMW on radars for autonomous driving. But for the most part, we follow them and see where they take us. So we have a few where they think, oh, this is where we want to go anyway. Mostly we realize we had no idea, but we kind of want to be in on that. And so in living, we see companies that take us to completely new levels. On the digital side, where we think this could be a really cool idea, and so how can we partner there? We have a few companies in the retail space where fashion is getting very excited and see, so what can we learn? What we could do here? So there is a lot that there's literally in every cohort, every startup teaches us something, but the most exciting ones are those that we hadn't even dreamt of. Which is why this is actually the hardest thing to explain at home when you're the advisory board and the finance guys ask you, but what exactly are you guys looking for? But you have to limit it. So what exactly is the theme? And you're like, well, if I knew that, I wouldn't have to do early stage investments. Right? The whole point of early stage is that I have absolutely no idea where this is going. That's why we need these guys, and that's really working.
An interesting topic that's already come up is thinking about new companies coming into New York City. What's interesting here, when I first reported about ADO and we worked at The Verge, which I no longer do, but at that point, what I found really interesting was how you engaged with the local community and defined startups not just as what new companies that were starting, but maybe startups that were actually really businesses that were trying to redefine themselves or coexist in a community that's changing. Can you talk about how the local community has impacted your work?
Yeah, a lot actually. And we give them space basically. We have them come over. But funny enough, again, like Alice isn't there tonight, so I can say that. But we all remember we had an amazing girl here who has been working with us for the last 2 years. She was just snapped up by Apple. We're still mad. She's now in San Francisco, and she's great. We love her. But she did amazing events here. They were programmed and planned for a long time, and there was a lot of effort put in. And then Nathan, who works on our marketing, looked at the channel and how it worked. And then one night he just gave over the space, just because we like our neighbors, to the vintage store right next door. And they took it over, and it was the most pumping party we ever had. They just had the room filled with young girls that partied, and it was the most insane Instagram following. And we just looked at our phone and did you see that? Like, and the geotagging was through the roof. We're like, what is this? Like, who did this? And it was just the neighboring vintage shop. I mean, they did it so much better than we had done it. And we generally see that the people that work here in the neighborhood do just great stuff. So we have, they use our space. We profit immensely from the way they see things and where they take it, and we just run with it.
Do you want people to think of this as a mini space, or do you like the ambiguity? I mean, how many people here know that ADO is mini inclusive? So about half.
About half, that's what I would assume. That's fine. I mean, ADO stands for the Amalgamated Drawing Office, which is the name that Alex Isigonis gave the first team that did the first Mini 1959. So if you want to find out, it's there. It's just not in your face. We generally, I mean, my general logic is that the people we interact with are very intelligent. And I just generally think we should respect the intelligence of our audience, and the times of like dumb in-your-face marketing, I think, are kind of over. So I just think like, people find out, people will appreciate hopefully that this is something they want to see, and the people that come here often and stay with us and spend quality time here, they know who we are and what we do, and I think that's, it's just a better way of doing it.
Esther, this is only one of many projects you're involved in. Could you talk a bit about how this works in your global perspective? Because the world is bigger than New York City.
Yeah, although when we said that, we had that question too, like, does it make sense to do one space and then pour that much love in? A third of our team works out of this space, which is a lot for, it's quite a lot if you think about it from a global perspective. But we always knew that there is so much going to come out of this space for us. We use it as a base all the time. Mini Living was kind of born and developed here. Mini Fashion is taking this as a hub. So I think you need one place that's real and feels great. New York, is the favorite people of most people. It's definitely my favorite city. So, personally, I really wanted to be here. But it's also the place where people like to come anyway. And you see it from, if I have to tell my marketing colleagues why it's here, we generally say, the social media crowd loves it, where else but here. I think it's worth putting that much love into one space and like make it the center for a lot of things. But we do want to open we foresee 2 or 3 way smaller versions of ADO outside of the US. So it is going to grow, but to be honest, never ever will I do something with that much effort ever. Anywhere else. So in this scope, it's going to be the only one, and then there's going to be small spin-offs.
What time for one more question? I'd like to ask you sort of where we started, and to say on theme, the future. What can you clue us in? What's going to happen here? Yes, the ambiguous future, but the local future. Here. Talk about what are your dreams for this space? What do you see it just continuing or growing? What can you give us a clue on what we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I think the team is here. This is a question I asked my team. This is how this goes. So the team here is really excited about continuing the work they've been doing with designers that we have here on commissioned work. UVA did an amazing installation in summer. We've just met and looked at the next one. We're down to the finalists, so we're quite excited about that continued work. But other than that, the team is really excited to take it to another digital level. So we're trying to build a digital resource where people can benefit from what they get here on a digital level, which we think is not that easy to pull off. I don't think that we just need another website with more pretty pictures. If we do this, it needs to transport the kind of relevance that the space has here locally into the virtual realm, and this is we're working on it, and then connect it to a global stage where we could do spin-offs and then have that connect back through also research seminars that have been really successful. People are very excited about that. So basically, more programming to the next level globally and virtual.
Okay, and then one more quick question. Is this what you imagined the space would be? And how does it compare to because you made it, you took a lot of chances, you had an openness that's unusual for a corporation, right? So, and that's driven by you. So can you talk about is this what you thought it would be?
No, absolutely not. I would. No, it is not. I think it's not, and I love that it's not, because at some point, also when we discussed the design of this space, we said there's 2 routes we can go. We deliver a finished and polished product, and we open it on day one, cut the ribbon, and say, this is it. This is how I imagined it, and this is what you would do with a store. Or we open it as a work in progress, and we leave a lot of blanks, and you have to live with the blanks. And I knew this is going to be so hard for me. I will stand there every day like, why is there no installation? Why isn't this fixed? Why don't we? And we decided we needed to go this way because we wanted to have a space where people come in and say, oh, I could fix that and I could build something better there, or I want to do installation right there, and then, or we could totally reconfigure this. And this has been it. But it's been really painful for to see it and go like, this is so not finished. But it's been worth it because it's like there is like the fact that it can grow and people see that it can grow and they can contribute something there rather than feeling like, well, this is a showroom or a shop. I would always do it again, but that also means that you had no idea what it will look like over time.
Live with the blanks. I love that. Thank you, everyone.
Time for one question, maybe? Question from the audience. Does anybody have one? Yes, over here. Can we get a microphone to this person? Actually, let me just run over. Share mine.
Okay, cool. Well then, this is interesting. No, so I heard a little bit about mini living. Really interested in learning more. So is it a separate business unit, or is it more of kind of like building the lifestyle? And then for me, more importantly, what's your take on building it as more of a sustainable alternative to other co-living spaces, which aren't really stellar in that? And then given the overall theme, being a sustainable aspect of the ecosystem is the city.
Keep the mic for a sec. When you say sustainable, you mean?
Environmentally, socially, and economically.
All three. Okay, I thought I was going to get away with one. Okay, good. Mini Living is the first Mini Living project is opening in Shanghai early next year. It's an 8,000 square meters, what is that, 80,000 square feet, I think, an old paint factory that we took over. And the logic is that it's it's in a great area that it's hard to afford. And we will offer you a way to live there because you have a relatively small private footprint, and then you share amenities with 4, 8, or 12 people depending on what you choose, and that's kitchen, lounge area, that kind of stuff. So that's what we consider private, but then on top of that you have more community things such as rooftops, and there's a food market, etc., that you can use as a community. A third, and the last third of the space is public, which to me was the most important part, because there is we're trying to support a real food market there that was closed down around the corner. There is shops there that we let stay, just give them a bit better space. There is just relaxed areas, rooftop gardens, that in that area there is nothing there. I mean, if you know Shanghai, or like any bigger Chinese cities, it's just like it sucks you into a vacuum. It's either offices or malls, right? And so we said we have to build the empty mall. It has to be open. It has to invite you to sit on the porch, bring your own food, bring your own drink, feel like it's public space. So that's what that space is. So that's kind of segue into why I think it shouldn't be other Silicon Valley-based players. You know, I just feel like you move into, it's all casted. You move in with the same cast of people that it feels really artificial. You're in this sterile environment that I don't want to reproduce. So we look into.
Sorry, I have to cut you off, Esther. We're running out of time. Can I get a round of applause for both of them? They're really great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.